Welcome to Season 5 of the Manufacturers Network. Real talk with the people building what's next in manufacturing. And now your host, Lisa Ryan.
Hey, it's Lisa Ryan. Welcome to the Manufacturers Network podcast. I'm excited to introduce our guest today, Brian Kaufman. Brian is co-founder and chief product officer at Strudel, an AI startup that gives technical support teams real-time context when issues hit and detects error patterns before they become customer-facing fires. He is passionate about helping engineers avoid solving the same problem from scratch each time so they have more time for product innovation. So, Brian, welcome to the show.
Yes, thank you. Great to talk with you today, Lisa.
So share with us a little bit about your background and what led you to doing what you do.
Yeah, so I probably have a very different profile from a lot of the people that you talk to. My background is not in manufacturing. It's actually in product development in the software space. I started my career in healthcare technology, but over time, I've learned that many of the same problems that we look to solve with software solutions in that space or in any space also apply to manufacturing. In terms of my relationship to manufacturing, I do come from a family with a deep connection to product development and engineering. My dad spent his entire career working in engineering at Kimberly-Clark. So if you've ever used Huggies baby wipes, that was the product that he started off in R&D and eventually was the engineering manager at their plant in Maumelle. I spent summers working there. So I have worked within a manufacturing space, but obviously not as more than an intern helping out as I could. But I have a deep passion for all things technology. I love to tinker. I love to build. And so I was really excited when I had the opportunity through Strudel and through our partner Tormach to help a manufacturing company better deliver for their customers.
Okay. Good. So why is undocumented operational knowledge such a persistent problem for technical support teams, especially in industries where the products themselves are complex and constantly evolving?
Yeah, anytime that you are building and supporting systems that are evolving over time, the challenges that you face are also constantly changing. So even the best manufactured products out there will break down over time. The environment that they're in can affect them in different ways. You have expertise within your organization that is distributed. And even the best organizations with really long tenured support staff find it very difficult to, in the moment that an issue arrives, get it to the right person with the right context so that they can solve it for their customer, whether that's someone working a manufacturing line or whether it's a customer who has a product out in the field that they're using. Being able to solve that as quickly as possible for them is a challenging problem. Particularly in the manufacturing space, we work with an organization called Tormach. They build CNC mills and lathes. They build fantastic products that have been out in the field for decades now, and they support their customers throughout the life, well past the warranted lifetime of those products. So they may see issues coming in for a product that's been in use for 20 years, and they still support that. And it's very difficult to take that longitudinal data and pinpoint exactly the issue that would affect a machine that was built in 2007 with this particular bill of materials and this software version. And so we partnered with them to help them build a knowledge base from the information that they have on hand through their ticketing system and documentation to bring that up. And really the core challenge was the information existed, it just wasn't findable. Their existing tickets couldn't surface it effectively. It couldn't ground that information in the specific products and versions. And so they were relying on the expertise of their staff to solve each problem each time it came in. Yeah. So, yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, as someone, I've worked in technical support on the software side, and there are days where I can't remember things I did in the morning, let alone something I did 3 years ago. So if the same issue comes in, but it's been a little while, or it comes to a different technician or support person than the last time, it can be very difficult to not have to go through that whole problem solving and investigation process again, which takes time. You have to go back and forth to the customer, come up with troubleshooting steps, and eventually try to arrive at the solution, where there may be a well-grounded solution out there in the thousands of tickets you've solved in the past. And if that were uncovered and given to you, you can start there, start with the easiest one to assess and get to the correct answer. So you have a long-winded answer to the question of, there's a lot that goes into solving these. And the more that you can help someone with the investigation, the faster you can solve it. And the more you can free those very smart people up to work on the most novel problems that are out there with your systems.
It's so interesting when we talk about the undocumented knowledge, because my new book just came out, Smart Plant. And that's one of the things that we really talked about, is the fact that we're taking human judgment out of the equation because we're so reliant on AI and we're letting it make a lot of decisions. But when you're talking about processes that started 20 years ago, and you have people coming into the workforce right now that literally can't read a tape measure or turn a wrench, how are we making sure that we are capturing that knowledge that we don't even know that is walking out the door until we need it 6 months after that person's already gone? So it's an interesting conundrum that a lot of plants are going through when we're talking about just the different equipment. You said 20 years. I've worked with manufacturers that they have equipment on the line from the 1940s.
Yeah.
And it's still working, but the people who can actually fix it or want to fix it are getting fewer and fewer.
Yeah. And to that point, I would say the first step is, the sooner you start to find a way to document that institutional knowledge and collect it, the better. And whether that's in historic emails, tickets, paper, never before has there been a better opportunity to be able to take that information and turn it into something that is useful than there is today. But I do want to go back to your point about I think we're making ourselves at times over-reliant on AI to solve our problems. Yeah. We take a very pragmatic view to AI at Strudel. We believe that where it's at right now, it can be an excellent investigator and partner to a technician, but it does not replace human intuition, experience, and just the world knowledge that people hold in their heads, whether or not they're deeply experienced. We all have an understanding about how things work in the world that AI can't yet replace, that kind of mechanical understanding of the world. And so what we tend to do is we bring as much quality information in front of the technician, give them what we believe are the best troubleshooting tasks to take, but they can still choose. Actually, I think we should start on step 2, because I'm remembering that. And in fact, I can go look at that historic ticket that you gave me. I'll read through that. And yeah, this really does intuitively seem right. So I'm going to ask the customer to try that first. We don't take the human out of the equation. And we find that it helps them train new staff, because now, even if you've never documented an SOP for resolving a particular error code or behavior, we can generate that based on what you've seen in history for that specific machine, for that specific version of the software running it, and give that to them as a step-by-step instructional set, just as if you'd written it out yourself. And we can even ingrain that into a document for them if they find that this has happened 3 or 4 times and this should just be a standard set of instructions to send to the customer, for example.
Yeah, you're definitely right about our over-reliance on it. It reminds me when you were talking of when the internet first came out, and I saw it on the internet, so it's got to be true. Well, and now we're doing the same thing, but we're like, that's what AI told me, so it's got to be true. I can't tell you the number of times that I have told, don't make stuff up.
Yes.
And then, oh, I'm sorry, I was just making assumptions. Don't make assumptions.
Yes.
So you mentioned it a little bit, but how really does knowing which machine model, firmware version, and configuration a customer is running change both the speed and the quality of the answer that they get?
Yeah. So one thing it quickly does is it narrows down the problem space. So whether you're a physician trying to diagnose an illness or you're a technician working on the line trying to figure out why there's a bottleneck in your process or a machine is jamming, you want to eliminate as many possibilities as possible as quickly as possible. So at the very highest level, knowing which machine you're talking about, whether it's a lathe or a mill in the case of Tormach, or whether it's a case packer, whatever it is, already limits the possibilities for what the issues are. Also knowing, for example, that there might have been a short run of machines where a label was misprinted, maybe from January of 25 to March of 25, there was a known issue. Machines were shipped out with this sticker in the wrong place. And so knowing that very quickly allows you to shortcut your investigation. Well, if it's in this time range and it has these behaviors, there are 3 tickets out there that look exactly like it. Shortcut to that as the first troubleshooting step. Check that label, see if it's in the wrong place. If it is, you move the plug there and you can reposition the sticker. Now the issue is resolved once and for all, rather than going through and checking wiring and doing all these more difficult to evaluate steps. So it's really all about shortcutting the process of investigating an issue and getting as close as possible to accuracy. It also tends to reduce the amount of hallucinations that an AI does. So a lot of what we're using in terms of techniques are traditional statistical analysis and machine learning techniques. We try not to use LLMs for everything. It's really inefficient, leads to hallucinations, and it's very hard to monitor and to evaluate the quality of it versus some of these older techniques that are well proven that have been honed since the 1960s, and then using LLM for some kind of last mile summarization and turning it into English for you. So that's the other piece, is having quality information about the environment helps ground the answer in the real world of the situation, rather than letting the AI hallucinate, that you're using some machine that doesn't even exist, which it will try to do at times because it so confidently wants to give you an answer. It will make things up to give you an answer. It thinks will make you happy.
It's just why I really love the way this next question is phrased, because manufacturers often worry about AI that confidently gives wrong answers, especially when a technician is standing at a machine. So what are some of the things you're doing to make sure that you're handling not only the accuracy of the information, but the trust of the technician and the information that you're getting?
Yeah. So that's the right thing to worry about. And it's why we're operating the way that we are. We ground everything in historic tickets and documentation. So every troubleshooting step, every suggestion, and we call them suggestions, we're not giving rote answers or saying that we're 100% sure of things. We're saying we think that it might be this, try this to validate. And it's all of that is grounded in historic tickets and documentation. So real information from the customer or from the real world of servicing these machines out in the field. We also are grounding everything as hypotheses and saying, okay, check this. If you get this evidence, it's very likely this, and here's how you can fix it if that's the case. And if that doesn't solve it, which we're not going to get it the first time every time, here's step 2, try this. And we try to order those in terms of a mix of what's the easiest to check versus how confident we are based on how many tickets in history look like this behavior that the customer is describing. And at times the person who is asking for help may give very limited information. So sometimes the first step is just, here are 5 things we need you to ask the person in front of the machine to get more information about the problem, because we can't confidently give anything useful yet until we know A, B, C, and D. And so that we find really helps to reduce the amount of hallucination. And it also, by showing our work in that way, it builds trust for the people who are using the product. Because if they don't want to use it or don't trust to use it, it's not going to be valuable to the organization. and it's not valuable to us. So we have to build trust with them. And part of that is by being partners with them rather than trying to tell them what to do. We give suggestions. We try to act like a partner.
It's funny. And I think that we're getting better with this as far as just talking to the machines, talking through a long tail prompt, as far as instead of write me a code that does this, of being able to say, what I'm thinking about in this project is this is what I want to accomplish. And these are some of the things that I'm thinking about. And basically that brain dump that is giving the machine and AI as much information as you can. And the technician also knows, I believe that's a good way that we're capturing some of that information, because of course we talk differently than we write. So if all we're doing is writing prompts, then we're not going to get nearly the answer that if we turn on that dictate and just start talking to the machine and letting it figure out. And then one of my favorite questions for that is, and if you don't understand what I'm asking, please ask clarifying questions. So that we're getting closer and closer to the answer without those darn hallucinations.
Yeah, the other term I use is just interview me about this problem. And it asks questions, kind of the same idea. Validate, don't make things up, doesn't work. You have to put it in the framework of being an investigator or being an interviewer, someone who's going to think it as someone asking questions rather than someone giving answers.
So walk us through what a support agent's day actually looks like with Knowledge Scout. What happens to the knowledge from each resolved ticket over time, for example?
Yeah, we embed directly into the systems that people are already using. So in the software space, there's a whole set of ticketing systems and knowledge storage systems, as well as in manufacturing. So we embed directly in whatever support ticketing system you're using. If you don't have one yet, which we've worked with smaller or mid-sized manufacturers that are still on kind of email and spreadsheet, we can work with those as well. And we'll basically give you a chat agent to work with. But we try to embed in the existing workflow. So imagine you have a ticketing system and a request comes in from either a customer operating machine or one of your technicians on the floor, depending on the shape of your organization. The moment that ticket comes in, we read the information that the requester has given, and we take that information. We go through a pretty technical process. I can get into it if you want to. It's called vector. It's graph-based rules engine plus a vector search. But basically what we're doing is we're looking for anything that looks similar that's happened in the past, whether that's in your historic tickets or documents. And we're culling anything that is not related to that specific product, serial number, whatever other kind of environmental aspects matter to the particular organization. And all that's configurable. And within about 15 to 20 seconds, a response is generated right in that ticketing system. It's an internal response, so only the kind of support person can see it. And that gives you your step-by-step troubleshooting steps to try out, grounded with references to those tickets and documentation. And then as an agent, I can reach out to the person who's in front of the machine and suggest those steps, or it could be right in the hands of that person. Now they're going through those steps. If they're like a field service engineer, they can start working on those troubleshooting steps. And if they need follow-ups, they can ask them and we'll give clarifying information. What you were asking then about, okay, what happens over time with this information? As more tickets are resolved, we embed that additional information into our knowledge base. We have this essentially synthetic knowledge base. It gets updated anytime a new comment comes in, anytime a ticket is closed, that resolution becomes part of what we understand about the system. And what we're also finding is when organizations bring on new staff, this helps them on board. Because typically what you do when you bring on a new technician is you probably pair them up with someone experienced, and you probably know more about this than I do. So feel free to chime in on the best practice. But what I've seen is you partner them with a couple of experts and have them kind of tag along and shadow them and see how they're going through the process. And over time, they learn the scope of what's out there in the world of these machines. As new products go out, new issues come up, they have to keep learning. And that's another thing that we can help with is sharing as novel issues come up. We can send out information to the team. Hey, something new has come up with this lathe, just so everyone's aware. And of course, unlike traditionally where you might have to remember that email from 3 months ago when the issue comes up, we'll just surface that information the moment a new ticket comes in that looks the same. So it just helps bring that information right to someone's eyes. And if you're new, it gives you some initial steps that you can walk through right from the start, even if you're new to the environment. And that helps you learn what the process might look like.
So with so many different programs and services and processing that are out there, what do you think are some of the biggest mistakes that manufacturers are making when it comes to implementing a system or even in deciding what system to go with or who to help?
Yeah. So in terms of, and again, I'm probably going to lean on some areas where you have a lot of expertise. I think change management is one of the biggest challenges with any organization trying to onboard a new tool or a new skill set. And so what I always advise is let's find some early wins, some easy wins for the team so they can see the value and engage with this new product as quickly as possible. Rather than trying to go for solving everything all at once, perhaps you start with a specific product line and just get really good with that and help out the team that supports that and grow from there. It's really about taking small bites, finding victories for the team, and then expanding it. So if I'm an organization wanting to implement AI, which is of course a huge umbrella of products, or a new ticketing system or an assistive tool, I would say start small, find wins, adapt, and then expand. Have a checkpoint very early in the process to see if things are working and if anything needs to be adjusted. We've had to adjust how we deliver answers every week that we've been working with our customer, and we think that's a good thing. That means we're learning from them and we're listening to them and we're adjusting how we solve problems with them, even though initially we did have some good success.
Yeah. I liked your point about starting small and eating the elephant one bite at a time,
Yes.
thing, but also really getting your staff involved as far as what if we worked on what one process that would make your day and your life easier. What would that be? Or what's the thing that sucks most about your job?
Yes, exactly. What do you hate? What do you hate doing?
Yeah.
Get rid of it.
Start there and go for the small and go for the wins, but making sure that you're getting your people involved so you don't go to some trade show and come back with some bright new shiny system and your team members are like, that's stupid. We're not going to use that. Where if they've got the buy-in, I'm sure that you've seen it before. It's like you can have the biggest naysayers on the planet, but if they feel that they are engaged in the process and they're asked their opinions, there's a lot more likelihood that they're going to be one of the biggest advocates for that change process.
Yeah. And I think most technical shops, technical support teams have a few people like that. The one who's got the deep expertise but doubts new products and is really proud of their expertise, that's the number one person to win over. Exactly as you were saying, find a way to solve a problem they don't like, whether that's answering the same question 3 times a month. That's a waste of their time. This is one of the most skilled people on your team, and you want her working top of license at all times, to borrow a term from medicine, right? If you have someone with 20 years of expertise that knows every product in your organization, you don't want them working on something they've solved 5 times before, even if they solve it quickly. That's a waste of their time. Typically, those are the people too that if given some more idle time, will come up with novel improvements to your product, will think about, they might like training other people. It frees them up to do the things that they like doing and generally are higher leverage activities within your organization. And taking away, I've always said that any product has to do one of 2 things or both to be worthwhile. It either needs to take away pain or bring joy. Ideally, it does both, but a lot only do one or another. And really, we're first focused on what pains can we take away, and we can create joy, all the better. But taking away pain is generally enough in the tool space to make people happy.
Yeah. And I always thought that was sad that we are so much more motivated by pain than we are pleasure, but we're humans and that's just what happens.
Yes.
So when you have manufacturers considering AI for support, what does a realistic starting point look like? And what do you actually need to have in place before it works?
Yeah. So number one, there needs to be some data, right? Data is the starting point. And every organization is somewhere along a curve from we have nothing documented. It's all up in Stan and Clara's heads over there in the technology and engineering department to we've been documenting everything in SAP for 30 years. So we have a great wealth of knowledge, but it's really disorganized and hard for us to bring together. So step one is figuring out where that information lives. And we're working with an organization now that doesn't have a ticketing system. Everything's in emails and PDFs. We're going to work with them to digitize that and put that into a format that is leverageable for them. Even phone records, if they've recorded them, can be useful now in a way that wasn't possible realistically 5-6 years ago. And then the next one is we take that information and do what we can to infer from it. What's the business logic that links different things together? So at one organization, it might be product lines. Another organization, it might be different manufacturing facilities using different tooling. It may be down to software revisions. We try to find out what those categorizations are within the data. And we present that to the organization to figure out, okay, do these seem accurate to you? Or are there any that you want to add? So similarly, if someone else was going to start out in this space, I think doing some of that assessment work to understand where are you at with your data and what are the implicit or hidden rules behind troubleshooting that may not be directly documented anywhere. How are you going to uncover that? Who knows that? Where might it live within your wealth of data? And how are you going to extract it?
Yeah. That's interesting when you were talking about all the knowledge being inside of Stan and Clara's heads instead of written down. I just did a program last week for a group of industrial hygienists on the danger of silence. And one of the tools that they walked out of there was to start interviewing those people, because I work with so many different manufacturers who basically an industry who they have more people leaving due to retirements than are actually coming in. So how are we sitting down and not with Stan and Clara to say, hey, give me everything you know so that we can replace you with somebody cheaper. But hey, you've been here for 30 years. There's a pretty good chance that you're not going to be here another 30 years. And we want to capture your legacy. And one of the questions that came up, and it was really interesting because it's kind of like the stump question. I still think it's a good one though, of what do you know that nobody's ever asked you about? Yeah. And just to capture that knowledge, because otherwise these people, they've built up their sensory library where they can see and feel and smell when something's right, when something's wrong. And to be able to give that kind of knowledge, it's really difficult. So just like you said, starting with your baseline, where are you? Is it in emails? Is it in documents and PDFs? Or is it in somebody's head? And how are we going to get it out of there?
Yep. And it's usually some mix of those. And I think the good news is that a lot of times those people with those 30 years of experience, some of them are quiet, like you said, and they're really excited to share that information. Yeah. They've worked hard to build that knowledge. They've worked hard to build those instincts. Those are earned instincts. They weren't born with them. They had to be out in the field working hard to gain that understanding. And many of them are very proud to share them. You know, you look at it is, like you said, the legacy. What are you going to leave to the next generation of people doing this support? And how can we do that in a way that is easier or less effort than training one by one the next group of people coming in, especially if that person with 30 years of experience is retiring in 2 months, or in 5 years when your next person comes on.
So where do you see Knowledge Scout going next? And
Yeah.
how does that fit the direction that manufacturing technology is heading?
Yeah. And then one of the things we're working on right now is expanding beyond just individual solutions to issues to also trend analysis and defect rate analysis. So wanting to give some statistical underpinning to one, figuring out when you need to revise the machine. What's the difference between something that's just a background issue, like things that are just going to kind of be happening over time to machines out in noisy, vibrating, difficult environments versus ones that are like, okay, this is statistically significant. You're having an issue with your automatic tool changer on this machine at a much higher rate than your other machines. You should look into it. And then what that helps with is you take your limited resource of your engineers, your design engineers and your R&D engineers, and focus them on the things that are causing the greatest customer pain or pain down on the actual manufacturing line. It allows you to have higher leverage with those limited resources because it's very easy for them to see something as an annoying issue to them, but it's not actually as significant to the people using the product or using the manufacturing line. So wanting to give just quality information to them so they can make well-rounded, well-evidenced decisions on what to work on next.
Okay. As we're getting to the end of our time together, is there anything that we didn't cover that you feel is important for us to know, or if we covered everything, what's a good first step for somebody listening to take advantage of?
Yeah, I would say the first one is if you have further questions about this, even if you don't think your use case looks exactly like the one I described, please do reach out. We're very happy to have a conversation and talk through how we solved some of these problems and how it might look at another organization. In terms of where things are headed, I would say the best time to start is as soon as possible with collecting information. Find the smallest way to start just getting quality information and expand from there. In the world of software, observability, tracking things like telemetry, failures, all of these are pretty well established. I think you see that at a certain level in manufacturing, but that is something that's still part of the growth curve for manufacturing. And there's a lot of opportunity to make these processes more reliable, durable, and easier to resolve by getting more and more quality data and having quality tooling to analyze it. So I'd say that's what I see as an industry trend. And this is a really good starting point. Figure out what you know, get it documented, and find any way to get it in front of the people that are helping out.
Brian, if somebody did want to continue the conversation with you, what's the best way for them to get in touch?
Yeah, so they can write to me at Brian, BRIAN, at Strudel. That's spelled like the food, STRUDEL.io. You can also go to our website. It's www.strudel.io, and I can respond to you through there too.
All right, Brian, thank you so much for joining me today.
All right. Thank you very much, Lisa.
I'm Lisa Ryan, and this is the Manufacturers Network podcast. We'll see you next time. Thanks for listening to the Manufacturers Network podcast. If this conversation gave you something to think about, share it with someone else who will get it. And hit subscribe so you don't miss what's next.